Shookers! Hello, everybody. I'm James.
Hi, everybody. I'm Neil. Welcome to that podcast. I'm not sure where we're up to, but I think 28, 29. But we have a special guest today. I've known him when I first started acting, decided to go into acting. I decided to do a bit of crewing work for a film back in the day. It was called Blue World Order in Canberra, and I was driving the crew around, and I met a man named Stephen Hunter. And
how's it going?
And he's here now.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. That was you think of low budget, and then you just keep going another couple of notches. But it was an excellent. No, but
that's why you hired Neil.
But just from an experience point of view, and like it did show what you could do with so little. But it was also like that. That was the first film that I had like an arc throughout the whole film. So it was really great for my character. I had sort of one of the main characters, and it's taught me a lot about. Crafting the arc and the story. I mean, that's the director's job, but as an actor, I had to really work and see where I was at for different places. But that was great. Yeah. I mean, it was a good experience, apart from that massive bloody hole. I'm still traumatized by that. So,
yeah.
But anyway.
So we were doing the film, and one of the scenes was we went to, where was it? Out in New South Wales, near past Bungendore. Anyway, and
in the bush
somewhere, and there was a massive hole, and there's a crater from.
Don't talk about my mum like that.
What? But there was a massive hole, and and we did a scene there, and you had to walk around some. It was something horrendous, but anyway, we had to. Anyway, it was actually quite dangerous if someone fell. Like, of course.
Well, how big is this hole? How big are we talking about?
It was about 350 meters down. Like, quite dangerous. If someone fell in it, they would have died, badly. I mean, I don't think you ever died well, but died.
And actually, when we were having a chat that day, one of the guys was saying that not only is it 350 meters down, but it goes in a kilometer or something like that. That's something real deep. So, but we also had at that time they were trying to get a sense that the civilization was underneath there or whatever. So they got the drone down.
Look, it looked great in the film, but it was one of those things that you know sometimes if you don't feel safe, you just have to make the call. And, you know, it was just one of those things. It happens. But anyway, it was a while ago, and it came out, and a few people watched it. We ended up going to London, and they had the world premiere in London.
Wow.
My friend Sylvester McCoy came to see it, which was fantastic. And I ended up doing this like walking pub crawl about 3 days later out at Hampstead where he lives, and he quite liked it. He actually, his words were, that was quite good. I was worried it was going to be shit. And obviously wasn't. So but there we go.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come in, because I know you do a bit of teaching, you do a bit of coaching, and you obviously you're a professional full-time actor as well. So you're.
I mean, as full-time as it gets, right? I mean, you know, full-time often means I'm full-time looking for work or full-time auditioning. I've got a couple of auditions outstanding at the moment. One probably what's not going to happen. The other is probably not likely to happen. So that's where they're at. But I do a lot of coaching through my business, The Actors Coach. My app's about to go live on the stores, and I've just developed this online coaching program on demand thing, because everyone's doing classes and people have got a lot of stuff going on live, which I think is vitally important for all actors to go and do group classes and get your network and get up and do all that kind of work. I kind of work on mentoring and coaching, and just had a client land a big role in his first big role in a TV series. So after working with him on a recall, so that was pretty exciting. So
nice.
Yeah, I get an awful lot out of that.
Do you find that private coaching is more effective than for actors as opposed to doing as a group as a whole?
Oh, look, I think it's different. I think it's about a mix. And, you know, as an actor, I mean, the first thing that I, go into is you setting yourself up. Like, are you set up I mean, you've got a great setup here with your screens, and I know you do tapes for people as well. And just having that environment, like balancing your work, like earning money and following your creative dreams, and then it's about investing. It could be time. I mean, there's so much free stuff out there that you can get into. You look at the Stage Milk, YouTube channels, or I mean, there's so much stuff that you can get for free. And then it's about what am I going to invest? Because as an actor, it's us. Like, we're a business. The business of you, and there's certain things you can invest in. I think it's really important to do, as I said before, to do group classes. I kind of see myself almost like, I mean, you've seen me like a personal trainer in a way, where a lot of my work is people come to me for like career advice and mentoring, or to reset, or just to be, one of my programs is kind of like they do the program, but there's also like weekly calls, and it's kind of keeping people on track, kind of mentoring. So that's what I do. But yeah, the other side of it, the group classes is kind of like getting yourself to the gym and just putting in the work. So, people want to know how to do a self-tape, and I'm like, I'll give you some great notes on, breaking down a scene and the process I use, but you've got to literally film a shitload of self-tapes just to get the practice in. So I think private coaching's good, but I think it's like for specific things, like a big audition, or if you want a reset, or you want a bit of a mentor. I'd never tell people, and I actually discourage people, like, I just want to do coaching classes one-on-one. I'm like, well, it's pretty expensive. Like, you're better off getting in a class. And I think it's good you get a group of people, and, you've done classes and you've been in those groups. It's, I think you have to self-generate to a certain degree. And there are times where you have to invest. You just have to be really careful when you do it, and you need a plan, you need a strategy. Like, if someone's going to hire me, I'll go, okay, that's fine. What's your plan with this? Because don't just turn up once a week and spend this money, because it's way more expensive than doing group classes without a plan. So,
That's a really interesting analogy between personal training and going to the gym, where it's kind of like you don't really want what a gym is, right?
Yeah.
Look at the guy. Of course he does. I try to wear my smallest shirts.
I've seen Instagram. You're looking good. Yeah, it's good stuff.
I've actually, and that's the other part, is physical fitness. I went back to my trainer that I was training with, Marat, over in Randwick. This is before I got the Hobbit. This is before my daughter was born. She's 12 now, and I went back to him, and we're doing different kinds of training, but because I ripped my shoulder. I just tore my shoulder picking up a box of mid-strength beer at Dan Murphy's in Melbourne. I wish I was joking. and then after that, playing footy with this Bang football group, all these actors, I actually ripped my bicep. You can see it's gone from there. And I was just about to go and film The Tourist in Adelaide, the stand show with Jamie Dornan, and I went to the specialist, and luckily he said it's torn from the top. If it was torn from the bottom, I would have needed an operation, and I don't know how I would have done that job. So that was a real wake-up call for me about being physically prepared. And sure, I got to lose weight. I could probably eat better, but I'm pretty much prepared for going to do a job and not getting injured. And I'm 54, so I can get injured really quickly. So I guess the strength is one thing, and I reckon I'm stronger now than I was 15 years ago.
Yeah, great.
It's just being prepared. I'm just waiting for that job where I'm going to need it.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about the whole body thing, like with like the image of who you are, like as an actor, right? Like there's actors out there who now, a lot of Australian actors, like we go to the gym and like we're trying to get this like model shaped body, but like, why is that so important as opposed to just staying healthy and being a good actor and not really worrying about having a six pack and all that kind of things, I think there's a sort of little like I mean, I guess I did acting like a bit later in my life, so I was already like doing other things, right? But like a lot of people are striving towards that as opposed to being a better actor as well, or rather more.
I think in the States especially, it's more aligned to looks. I think it's changing. Like I'm certainly not an expert on working in the States. I've never worked there professionally. I went over just before the first Hobbit movie dropped and had a bit of a nose around, went to Disneyland and didn't really, I mean, if I was going to be over there, I'd need an agent and a manager there. I need to spend a certain amount of time there. My family's in Sydney. I'm not going to do that. But I know look does play a part. especially for people getting older. Like if you're going in that leading man category, and especially if you're auditioning in the States, they do look for the look. It is a lot more, I guess, for want of a better word, superficial or surface for that. I'm not in that leading man category. I never have been. I never will be. I'm more character. So yeah, I guess for me, it's about general well-being, but also I want to be able to do things. I went for something recently that they said, would you be able to run around and do this crazy stuff for 6 days? I'm like, yes, I can do that because I'm kind of prepared from it. And I learned that doing the Hobbit stuff. It was you just have to be prepared for anything.
But even like on set, sometimes days are grueling, man. You gotta stay prepared the whole time.
Yeah, and it's funny because I guess physically is one thing, but you don't really do a lot of physical stuff. For me, the main one is like getting good sleep and it's what it takes out of you emotionally. I recently actually the show coming up in May, The Messenger on ABC, and I spent a few days on that, and some of it was really quite taxing emotionally. And at the end of that, you're just exhausted. And I always know I've had a good day and doing good work because, it's exhausting. I mean, for one, you got to, I always try and get my lines down in advance, but, you think about that and then you take on notes from the director and then you might have another take, you might have some more notes, you might have up to 3 or 4 notes you've got to remember at the same time, and then there's physical things with the camera. It is exhausting, So that's why my I guess my partying days are over and my alcohol intake is very light these days. I can't deal with that, especially around the times I'm working. There's just no way I'd be hungover now.
What do you do in order to recuperate? Like, what are your kind of ways of self-care?
Well, I think go to the gym, swimming. I've realised recently, especially after last year, because last year the weather was terrible. I went over to Bronte last week and just jumped in the bogey hole there in the ocean, and it felt magical. And so I think it's it's trying to really identify those things for you that are really calming. For my partner, it's like walking out, sort of in the bushland, kind of where we are, and sitting on a rock and taking it all in. For me, it's really being in the ocean. So that's kind of my thing. Like I love watching all kinds of TV. There's so much stuff I'm watching nowadays, all the long-form series. I've got a list of movies. I try and make myself watch films because otherwise I'm just not watching films. There's so much other content going on. Yeah. A bit of gaming. Like we bought a Switch. I like the old sports games. I've got like F1 on my phone. That sometimes that kind of stuff can help me zone out. I should say reading, but I fall asleep when I read. I'm reading *Sapiens* at the moment, which is an extraordinary book.
*Sapiens*, what's that?
Yeah, *Sapiens*. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's basically like the start of humanity. And what I didn't realize, it was like 5 or 6 different species of humans, way back to like 40,000 years ago, and the *Sapiens* basically were the ones that evolved, and that's anyway. It's quite interesting. Feels like you got a big brain reading it. So I guess that's it. I love sport, and also love cooking. I like to cook. I've got a garden at home. I've got growing. Chilies are going nuts this year. Actually, last year it was terrible because of the rain. I'm growing these Australian broom chilies. They're massive, about the size of your hand.
Wow!
And they're quite hot. And I made some chili jam.
Wow!
Chili jam.
Chili jam. Chili jam-a-lot. I call it. Yeah.
While we're just on food real quick, where is it, just on live podcast, everything, can you tell everyone where is the best kebab in Australia?
The best kebab in Australia? It would have to be Yarralumla in Canberra. I mean, Canberra cops it for a lot of people. I love Canberra. Like we stayed in a house in Yarralumla just around from this amazing kebab shop. All the Pollocks know where it is. They all go there.
We all go there, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah.
I ate one.
I have to get it for you.
Yeah, and I ate 1.5 one night because the girls got one. They couldn't eat it, and I really regretted it because they're massive. But it's so good. And it reminds me, I went to Turkey in 2001, and I spent 6 weeks in Greece and Turkey, and I just remember the food and the smell of the kebab places, and that's a place I walk into and I can smell it. The other one is Sultan's Table in Newtown,
Oh, okay.
right.
And I remember it's changed. I don't want to get in the shit, but the first time I walked in there after I came back from Turkey, this is a few years ago. They had the charcoals going, and all the smoke alarms were like taped up. They are following regulations now. Everyone, don't panic. Yeah.
Can I double back to something you said at the very beginning of the podcast? It hasn't bugged me, but I'm just like, I need more information on this. You mentioned you made an app. I need to know more. What is the app? What is it about? Is it about acting coaching?
Yeah, well, I started off doing, a few coaching things. I was teaching at Sydney Acting. I do Sydney Acting School, but the Sydney Acting Studio, Sydney Acting Studio, run by Hunter McMahon. He was at NIFA, and I studied Meisner at the Actors Pulse with him.
Cool.
So he got me into teaching, and I was like, at the time, I was like, oh yeah, but I've got to be available for voiceovers, because I was getting a lot of voiceovers when I got, before I did the Hobbit, and when I got back, built up again, and and I really didn't want to put myself out. And it's one of the dilemmas, like you want to be available, and especially with voiceover, you kind of got to be available all the time. And then I did a couple of classes, and I was okay. My partner's like, look, are you gonna take the actual job that's being offered, or are you going to wait for the imaginary job? And I was like, okay. And I started teaching. Then a few of the students started asking me questions to put together show reels, and anyway, I started to get a few, clients who would come to me and I'd direct their auditions, and they started to get some success, or I'd cut a couple of show reels, and they got agents, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then I saw this thing on Instagram, one of these ads, thing called Passion.io, which is this young British guy who lives in Berlin with his business partner, and they made all these apps for fitness trainers. And then they thought, why don't we create a platform where people can create their own apps? And then they expanded out of the fitness industry to other coaches. I hooked onto it. It's a drag and drop thing. So basically it's a web app at the moment. And I've got a thing called the 6-week challenge, where it's basically my whole process over 6 weeks, about 30 minutes a day. Everything can be done on your phone.
Wow.
Even though it's a web app now, you just, use Safari and you save it to your phone and the icon. It works the same way.
Yeah.
And it's basically, rather than telling people the same stuff over and over again, I just thought, why don't I, be scalable from a business point of view, and people can just go through the program, and then I have a support program, like a Zoom call once a week, and I say, hey, look, what's the best time? Because, you can't select one time. Everyone's got different jobs.
Yeah.
And it's flexible.
Yep.
And then I do a Zoom call for an hour, and I record that, and that's on the app as well. So they can ask questions. They send in their show reels. They send in their self-tapes, and I give them notes. And that's kind of like, that's a support mechanism as well. But it's all available on the app. So
yeah, wow.
Yeah, I just saw no one's doing it. And there's so many great teachers out there. That's the thing. There's great classes, and go look at all these great classes and get amongst it. You want to be at least once a week going somewhere and putting down tapes, doing the physical stuff. I'm kind of positioning myself a little bit different. So, and also, like, I've got a family. I'm never going to run weekend workshops like, Les Channery does his great workshops in the week. I'm never going to run those. I teach a bit with Hunter at the Sydney Acting Studio some nights when I'm available, but I basically want to have flexibility. And anywhere I am in the world, if I'm, New Zealand going to see my mum or what have you, I can basically run it and update it. So
yeah, wow.
Yeah, and it's, you don't have to do any coding. They basically make it all for you. So
wow.
Yeah, great for any coaches of any, any business. So it's very exciting, and it's taken me a while. I've had a few clients on the program for a few months now, and I'm just at the point where I'm offering a free program, like a 5-day free program, and I'll make it live so people can download the app. They can do the free program, and then at the end of that, there's like, hey, if you want to step up to the next level, this is what you do. And you can sell anything. Like you can do, I did a workshop with someone I know, Amy Smith. She's with EM Voices with me, and she does animation and gaming voiceovers.
Oh, cool.
And I did a 1-hour workshop with her, and so people paid like $17. They were part of the workshop. Some of them got to ask questions, but there's so much info there. Now that's available on the app, and people can just buy that for $17, and they can have it for forever. So
wow, yeah,
there's a lot I can do with that.
Yeah, how do we find your app?
It's the actorscoach. .com.au is the website.
Great.
And I'm just launching a brand new website, and all the information about the app will be on that. But even on my Instagram page, I unfortunately had all my Facebook and Instagrams hacked and lost everything in November last year, which was a real kick in the guts, really. I had like 6,000 followers on my Instagram page.
Wow.
So I had to start again, but the good thing about it is I had two accounts. I had my personal, then I had the Actors Coach. So now I've combined it. It's just Stephen Hunter Actor Coach on Instagram. I've got, Linktree Stephen Hunter Actor Coach. So everything's Stephen Hunter Actor Coach. So if people want to follow me for acting or follow me for coaching, it's all out there, and you can,
While on the subject, like, how important is social media for you?
Look, it's actually.
And should it be? Sorry, I didn't interrupt you. But like, how important is it for you, and should it be important for actors out there?
Oh, look, I think it does have a place. Obviously, if you are, I have heard stories. I don't know if it's confirmed. If people have got like a massive following, whether I don't know if it's going to affect casting. I think if you're just an actor, I mean, I got it basically because I had the Hobbit, and it's trying to, tap into that. And essentially I was kind of promoting cameo messages for the fans. So, but I think now with my coaching business, like, it's really important because that's how I promote all my whole coaching business pretty much exclusively through Instagram, doing reels, coaching tips, what have you, inspo, all that kind of stuff. So, it's good from a business perspective, but you can have a fantastic career without an Instagram account. I don't know. Like, I think at the end of the day, you're pretty better off focusing on your acting and, getting better as an actor. If you've got some kind of profile, you can promote things, you can follow people, they can maybe see your work, but unless you're kind of selling things or promoting a business, it's not, I don't think it's essential. But, you can showcase your work and people can see what you're up to, of course. But I think it's a great business tool. And like a lot of my clients are like younger actors, Instagram is definitely, that's the market. That's what they're all using. And I was reading something just recently that it's about 5 times more reach than Facebook, or 10 times more reach. It's like 84 times more reach than Twitter,
Wow.
So, yeah.
Before we were rolling, we were chatting about about the industry, and kind of, I guess the question I want to know from your perspective is, what do you love about the industry here in Australia? But then also, what does it need?
Look, it's hard because I think it changes all the time. I love, after coming from New Zealand, I love the fact there's way more work here. And, I was kind of busy 2020, 2021. There was a lot of American productions over here. So there were a lot of opportunities for people, and now that's kind of all gone back to the States. I think what I do love is that things are evolving. I mean, what I didn't like was, and this is the same when you're any actor not really getting a lot of work, is you see the same faces.
Yeah.
You see the same type of faces. From what I've seen, just, talking to a lot of people in the industry, is that the industry is becoming more diverse. I can't really speak to that. I'm a middle-aged white guy. It doesn't really affect me as much. But from what I've seen, there's a lot more, the casting process, and they seem to be casting the net wider to reflect our actual society rather than, the same faces. So, I do notice that a lot. Like a lot of the castings I get, it's always natural accent. So, but I guess you'd have to talk to someone who has suffered from that and to ask them if there's been any real change. I like the fact they tell a lot of Australian stories. But again, like we're bombarded with so many channels, and there is a competition. I guess as far as like film's concerned, it's very hard, like for movies, a lot of movies I've been involved in, to actually make a dent in the cinemas.
Money-wise, or?
Well, yeah, just to try and... I mean, there's a certain threshold. I mean, I did the Hobbit movies, right? And the marketing promotion budget was like $150 million. So So you know, they were well above what they needed to promote that, and they used so many things to promote the movies. I know so many Australian films. They go, come and see it in the first 2 weeks. Come and see it. So it stays in cinemas, because in the first 2 weeks, if it doesn't get the numbers, it gets ripped out of the cinemas. And unfortunately, as consumers, we don't act that. I don't think we act that quickly.
No.
And they go, week 3, I went to go see it and it wasn't there because it's too late. So I think that's always been an issue. I think that's changing a little bit with the streaming services, because they can go straight to streaming. But, you know, I also know of films that I've been involved in that have been basically bargain binned into a big streamer. So they don't really get a lot out of it. It's it's tough, which is why I'm an actor and a coach and not making bloody films, because it's so tough to make any money out of it. It just seems like a lot of effort. And I know there's going to be there's these proposed new laws with local content on the streamers, which I think is appropriate. I mean, if the free-to-air channels have to abide by it, I think the streamers should as well. And the word is, you know, there's going to be a lot more filmed here this year. So that's always good. So, yeah, but at the same time, there's only going to be a small percentage of people who will be working. And there's always going to be a percentage of people who won't be working, regardless of where it goes. It's like the school system. Like I was doing some research into the school system, and the way that the state school system, the normal traditional school system is that a certain percentage, like a third, must fail.
Really?
Yeah. Well, because they like, if everyone gets 60%, they'll downgrade it so that they can't pass everyone, which to me is like a fundamentally flawed system.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that's on another topic.
Yeah. Now, obviously, I know that you don't purport yourself to be an expert on everything and you have a solution for everything, but do you see any solution to that problem of having audiences not coming to Australian cinemas and Australian films and not making their money back?
Look, I don't know. It's hard because, you know, as a consumer, I watch predominantly overseas products because they're good and they're more heavily promoted. I always try to watch as much local stuff as I possibly can. Because the funny thing is, when you do watch it, you go, oh, actually, that was just as good as XYZ, but it's not as heavily promoted. Yeah. I was involved with Heartbreak High, and that just went off, and it was a really good product. And you know, hopefully, the second season will be fantastic. Hopefully, the quota system with the streamers will help, and a lot more people will be getting a lot more work. But at the end of the day, you can't force people to watch stuff. It's like,
could we?
Well, I think with quotas, it's as far as you can.
I feel like we do though. I feel like we do force people to watch certain things because you get bombarded with the same type of things, and then people don't have any other options but to watch the same thing. And, okay, we'll just watch this then.
Yeah. Could we have Australian Film Week where all cinemas in Australia have to show Australian produced films for a week?
Sure,
that would be great.
Do they have something like that? That shows how much I really know about that.
No.
I don't know. I don't know.
Like I know through the streamers, there's probably things they could do to. I know they do promote certain, you know, like Australian products through that. Maybe they could up the ante on that. You know, I mean, people are always going to go when you're buying something, when you consume or whatever it is, you're going to go with what you know. Yeah. And advertising is, I used to work in advertising, I used to work in radio advertising, and that was kind of the lowest rung of the advertising. But the whole point of advertising is to make people feel a certain way about a product or a service. It's not about the product or the service. So how many times do you buy something because you saw it advertised? Oh, that must be good.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm sure it kind of works in the same way, you know. Definitely with films, because anything that's promoted, you're going to watch, and if you don't, you got a great Aussie film that hasn't got a decent promotion budget, and you got a sort of an average film that gets promoted, you're probably going to watch the average film. Yeah. So yeah, that is hard. Interesting that came out of the lockdown is that I think there was a renewed, I guess, sense of urgency to make films for the cinema. I was actually listening to what's the guy, Anderson, the director, Paul Thomas Anderson, on Smartless, just like on my way here. And he was talking about the long form and that he believes you know, that sometimes they're trying to make more out of it, you know. Sometimes it needs to be just a 90-minute story or a 2-hour story.
Yeah.
And I know there are a lot of directors, I know, you know, working with Peter Jackson, he was always, I don't want to make stuff to be watched on an iPad, you know. So I think because people haven't been able to go in the cinemas, I think there's probably a lot of people that they just want to do films. They just want to have stuff that plays in the theatre.
And it's interesting now because because Netflix is so ruthless with how well their series are doing that a lot of people, I was just reading an article about this. It was about, I can't remember the way they worded it, but it was something like basically people are afraid to invest in a series because they're worried that it won't be renewed for future seasons. So it's creating this artificial kind of Netflix need a whole bunch of people to watch it in the first couple of weeks that it comes out, or they drop it. And
which is funny because a lot of these shows are slow burn.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, which, you know.
But it creates a cycle of it's like everybody has to watch this now or we drop it, and then everybody knows that, so they're like, well, we don't want to invest in that because we don't want to have our hearts and then broken or our expectations lost because you're not going to make the season 2 or season 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's like not going to invest in that. So then it just dies immediately, you know. So it's interesting because film, at least, it's like, well, I know I'm getting a complete story in 90 minutes and I can bank on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can absolutely see that appeal 100%. That's interesting.
But sometimes I watch films, I'm like, man, that went so quick. I'm so used to watching long form now.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of people, like, because I mean, when I was growing up in India, everything is like 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours. And then when Titanic came out, I remember I was like, oh, it's more than 3 hours. I'm like, that's normal for me, you know. Like that was like nothing for me, you know. So, but I do like the long form because you get to sit there and if it's a good story, you can go through the arc and you know and you're immersed in it, you know. Like when it's short form, it sort of feels like a sitcom at times, you know. And back in the day, and I don't want the whole cinema experience to go away because cinema is, for me, is still like an event. But at the same time, everyone going to cinemas and they're paying $30-$40 for a ticket. And back in the day, it was like $12.
Yeah.
And Tuesday used to be Tata's Tuesday, and that's not even Tata's anymore. It's like it's still $20, $25.
Yeah.
You know, so prices are going up, and like it's really difficult to go to the cinemas for a lot of people. You know? And this year in 2023, the interest rates are going to go up as well, which is not enough money on people's pockets. We're not doing well. Right? And now what's the answer to making good films? Well, we need more finances, we need more investment. From where are we going to get it from? You know, and also we also need like Australian stories. You know, like recently, like the last King of the Cross just came out. People are going to resonate to that because it's in our neighborhood. Like it's just 10 minutes down the road, and a lot of people around the world see Australia as just the outback and kangaroos, and like that's fucking we got more than that. You could shoot you could shoot a film in Canberra and make it feel like it's London or New York, you know, or whatever. But we're just not doing it.
I think like there's a lot of co-productions, I guess, happening now. I did The Tourist last year, which was supported. That was BBC and Stan. You know, there's a lot of those. I actually really enjoy sometimes the co-productions. There's a few I've been watching that have been bilingual as well. Like did you see Counterpart with J.K. Simons? It was English, German, and also the new War of the Worlds with Gabriel Byrne, which is in French as well. They've got a real darkness to them. But you know, there's great writers in this country. There's great stories, and I guess maybe it's a traditional mindset of that. If it's not Hollywood, it's not as good. I know that's definitely the case with New Zealand. You know, it's always, it must be better because there's more money, and you know, money will help obviously. But you're not going to get financing unless the whole point of financing something is to get a return. Yeah. So you know, it could be funding. It could be greater funding. You know, perhaps because if you finance, then if you're getting especially private finances, they've got to see a return from that. You know, and it's hard if you're not going to the box office. So I don't know, like maybe with the streamers, if they have to have a certain amount of local content, that there might be sort of funding through them. I mean, I know that, with Netflix in particular and Heartbreak High, I mean, I think that was the first proper locally produced show, 100% Australian, and that did amazing. But I think even from the very, very early numbers were okay, but I think it went ballistic on TikTok.
Right.
I think that's what really blew it up, and then it went crazy like around the world. And it was good because it was a good show. And if it wasn't a good show, it wouldn't do that. Sometimes it needs a little bit of a push, and then people watch it, and then you're away. So
yeah.
But with Heartbreak High, also it's not a new concept; it's an old concept.
Yeah.
Like it's from back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And a lot of us who watched it in the 90s, sort of like, oh yeah, that, but it's different now. And
totally different.
Yeah. And actually, with TikTok, especially, like a lot of the actors who were on the show, the main actors did a lot of promotion for that.
Yeah,
and it was huge. So that's what it did really well.
Yeah, and I think perhaps the tie-in with the old show was, I mean, there was a lot of the old cast who had parts.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in it as well. I remember going to they had the big screening. It was like one of the proper old school, premieres at the Paddington Town Hall. And I went to do an interview with someone, and he's like, what's it like being back? I'm like, no, I wasn't part of the original cast.
Right.
I'm one of the new old guys. Hopefully continuing. We'll have to see.
I'm one of the new old guys. That's great.
The new old guys, yeah. But I don't know the answer, and I just hope for my perspective, and also the perspective of people that I'm coaching, that there is more opportunities. I recently coached, as I was saying, one of my clients got this massive job, and it was quite specific, with his ethnicity as well.
Yeah. Right.
So it was really good to see him land something. Yeah, it's. I know a lot of people in the industry who do, a lot of different areas. I've got a friend who's a composer, and he's very excited about this year, about the fact that there should be a lot more local content. And maybe that's it. Like, if they have to have more local content, then, and if there's more local content being produced, you'd have to think that the quality of that, not saying that the quality's at a certain level, but people could get used to the fact that there's more and more content, and it might not even be about the quality of the content. It's just that if there's more available, like you're saying, if there's more Australian stuff there, then that might be the norm for people, and they might watch more of it. Like, I don't really know,
Maybe there's less of that unknown factor.
Perhaps, I'd like to think that the quality of stuff in Australia is very high. When we did Children of the Corn, which is still to be released, the producer and the director are like, they rate Australian crews obviously very highly, and Australian actors very highly. And it was all in US accent, but there was a very high regard for the quality of the work here. So yeah, it'd be nice to see more.
Yeah,
Disney's doing stuff here at the moment. Of course, now Fox is in Disney Studios, they've got a bit of stuff coming out in Disney Plus. So
yeah, I mean, I've heard that for ages. Like, we have great crew members and behind the cameras and stuff, and even in Thor, Thor didn't do too well, but that gave a lot of experience for all these people out there to become potential writers, potential directors, potential DOPs, potential whatever,
you're mentioning Neil, who was assisting Taika on that.
Yeah.
I didn't sort of see him on set, but I was there a few days, and I saw him running around doing stuff, and then he cast me in Heartbreak High. So I worked with him as a director, which was fantastic. Yeah, so yeah, that was. It's good to have. I mean, it's good to have the big ones, come through.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of raises the level for everybody. Yeah.
It's just you've worked with different directors. What is something? This is a question that a lot of people get in other shows, but in podcasts, I just want to ask you that. What is something that you see that you want from a director?
Well, it may seem obvious, but I guess some direction about the character. But everyone's kind of different. Like, some directors, they just trust that you know what your character's about, and they kind of let you go. They might give you some notes to do something different. Some directors will have a very specific idea. You know, I think just clarity, really. And even if it's clarity about the way they operate, because, I mean, it's the director's job to, you know, they're responsible for the overall story arc and for the character's arc. And as an actor, you know, we bring what we think there is. And, you know, it's hard because as an actor, I think a lot of people would probably understand this. The one thing you want from a director is to tell you that you're doing well. But they don't all do that. And it took me a long time to realize if they don't say anything, just keep doing what you're doing and it's fine.
Yeah.
You know, because we all want that, you know, gratification. Oh, you're doing amazing. And, you know, because we're all, you know, a little bit
insecure.
Insecure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's a crazy industry that it attracts people who, you know, we want to be open and vulnerable and wear a heart on the sleeves. And, you know, the core function, I guess, initially for getting jobs is rejection. You know, it's a cruel irony about it. But like, I just like a director who would, you know, give me some good ideas. And they're all just so different. You know, I always go in with what I think, and if there is a change in direction, you know, I want to know why. Not that I want to question them or, you know, butt heads, but, you know, they go because of of course, great, and you learn more. I did when I worked with Jane Seymour and Ruby's Choice, and with Michael Button, and I had a direct, you know, I had an idea of how a scene should go, and he was like, no, because you're still blah 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 blah, and no, you're right, because we've got our own ideas, but then it's the director's job to create the overall story. So, you know, you kind of got to trust them.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and like some directors are technical, you know, and they won't give you as much direction on the acting. You know, some people are. I was listening to Barry Sonnenfeld on Smartless the other day, and, you know, he doesn't like changing any of the dialogue. Some directors, they love changing dialogue, they love ad-libbing. Other people are like, no, this is what it's written, this is what we've got to do. And I think he said his only direction was to go faster. Yeah. You know, and that was kind of it. So, you know, I think you have to be open to all kinds of feedback. You've got to have a good idea yourself and make the choices. And I say this when we're teaching classes, like you go to any acting school, right? And you might have 3 or 4 teachers. And I get this all the time going, and I'll give a note and they go, oh yeah, because such and such said last week I should be doing that. I'm like, yeah, that's valid. Yeah. It's up. The whole point is you make up, you know, your own mind and you create your own process moving forward. Yeah. And then when you're a director, you know, the audition's always the hard part because often you're guessing, especially with self-taping, because we're not in a room now with a director giving us, you know, direction, like, you know, which way should I go? So I always like to do 2 takes if I'm unsure, but they've got to be totally different. But if you go on a TV show, when we did The Messenger, there was 3 different directors. Heartbreak High, there was 3 different directors. Right. So you're always going to get different notes. But everyone's going to have a different idea, but you've kind of have to work it out for yourself and make your own choices.
Well, thanks for coming on to our podcast.
No worries, bro.
Yeah.
Awesome. Love the setup.
Yeah, it's a humble setup, but it does the job. So, thanks for taking time out of your day and having a chat with us.
I can't believe it's been all this time I haven't pushed the buttons.
You can press it. You can press it.
I love the buttons. At least it wasn't this.
No, it wasn't. I'm happy it's not that.
And it's I think we're in a good place now. I see you can turn off. Good. I think we're in a good place in the industry. It's interesting, like everything that happened 2020, 21 with all the American productions coming out, that was good. I mean, you know, there was a lot of people got work. They brought a lot of their own people, but it's either that or nothing, right? Yeah. But hopefully on the back of that, the local industry will be even stronger. But at the end of the day, it's about the viewers. You know, it's about the numbers of people watching, and it's the money that they're going to make that's the people who are really making the decisions. So, you know, I think, you know, the more you do, the better you'll get. And I think the quality of Australian stuff has always been really high. So, you know, onwards and upwards, I say.
Great. I got so much more questions I could ask her, but yeah, we'll try to keep it short and sweet with the podcast here.
Yeah.
And
Next time.
Yeah, well, look, you know, as you know, a lot of actors, like, primarily this is for the creators out there who are listening in. So, I mean, we always go in between jobs. This is for them just listen in between things, you know, and so we try to keep it pretty good. But thanks so much for coming on, and I hope you come back and we'll have another chat.
No worries.
In the future.
My pleasure.
And sugars for the app and for this year.
Yeah. Same to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.